What's up, guys? This is Anything Garage. I'm Jaime and welcome to today's episode. Today I got a Kawasaki ZX6R. This is not mine. I wish it was. This is a 2009 model, and someone brought it to me so I can do some work on it. He says that one of his friends said that his chain was loose when they were riding behind him, and I thought maybe the chain adjusters went out of whack or something. And I think the chain is gone. So when he brought it to me, I looked at it and started moving this wheel, and this thing is locked up. It's not really locked up, it's just really hard to get moving. And this chain is like tight. Once you move this, get it out of here, it locks up here again. Yeah, once you get it to move like this, the chain is super loose. Well, that's actually because I tensioned it, put some tension on it, but it was much looser. I mean, that thing was just slapping around everywhere. I'm gonna change the chain, front and rear sprocket on this video. So yeah, the writer behind the owner of this bike said that the chain was like slapping everywhere, and the owner did say it didn't feel right. So the sprocket cover, I just took it off. It's just, 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. So we're gonna remove the chain, and then I'm going to turn this back wheel without the chain just to see see if I hear any bad bearing or anything like that. See, it's already locked. Yeah. Yep. So this is what I got for the Kawasaki. We got an EK X-Ring gold chain made in Japan, and Vortex chrome front sprocket, and a steel laser cut rear sprocket by Vortex. So you guys can look at these are stock tooth count. We gotta unfold that washer to let this nut free. Okay, now that we opened it up, we can take the nut off, and all I did is use a number 3 slotted screwdriver and a small little hammer, and opened it up. All right, I had to get me a new tool. Got this from Harbor Freight. My old air gun is not powerful enough to do it anymore, so got this one. Let's see if it works. It's a 27 millimeter nut. So let's break it. So you need someone to hold the brake on the other side. On number 3. Make sure it's to loosen. Ready? Here we go. Oh, took it off easily.
No way.
Yeah, it's better than that. Oop. Okay, next remove this. Okay, on your rear axle bolt, unfold the cotter pin, slide it out. On your chain tensioner, loosen it so it won't be so tight when you take the whole axle off. Hard to see, but it is loose now. Other side as well. Since this is an original equipment chain, OEM, or at least the style of it, it is riveted on, and so we have to break it, and we will use a angle grinder. Oh no! What happened?
Spinning fine.
So it's spinning fine, so that means our bearings are good on the wheel. So most likely sprockets are bad, or the chain, or both, or all three.
You see from here, the sprocket is warped.
These sprockets look fine, the front and rear, but it's good practice to change the sprockets when you do a new chain. Usually they change the rear, not the front, but in this case we're going to do both because we don't know how old they are. The owner got it used, this motorcycle, so we're just going to change everything out. Since we are changing the rear sprocket, we have to unbolt it off of the rear wheel, so we have to take the rear wheel off. So to take the rear wheel off, we have to take the 2 bolts off the rear caliper and then take the axle off and slide the wheel out. Okay, now we can take the rear axle nut off. It is a 32 millimeter. A block and a spacer, wheel spacer, on each side will fall off, along with the brake caliper bracket once you take this wheel off. Okay, remove 6 14 millimeter nuts from the rear wheel to remove the sprocket. Alright, let's put our new sprocket on. Make sure it's facing the right side. The right side on this is where the logo is and the tooth count. When you put your sprocket on, do an X pattern to tighten these. It's 45 foot-pounds. Front sprocket, remove the old one. Put the new one in. Okay, when you put your rear tire back on, it's going to be a tight fit because the swing arm is going to be tight, but you can actually stretch the swing arm a little bit. Just grab something to pry it, like a flathead screwdriver, and with a buddy you'll get it on there pretty easily. We're going to put our chain on now. Before you put your chain on, make sure you take the lithium grease off of the chain that came with it, or it will smear your rear tire, and put your own chain lube on it. This chain is a 120 link, and I think the motorcycle is supposed to be 112 for OEM. So I'm gonna cut off 7, leave it at 113, it'll still be fine. I'm gonna grind down here and then use a punch to punch out. So a funny story, the chain we had at first, I accidentally cut it too short. It happens. I've done a few chains and this is the first time it happened to me, so I got a new one. This one's by RK. Same thing, gold. Here's the new chain. Anyway, this is a 112 link stock OEM. I've accidentally cut mine to 110. This one I cut it to 114, so it's a little longer than it needs to be, but it'll work just fine. So anyway, yeah, just a heads up, make sure you cut right. Okay, so once you put your master link on, you're not going to be able to actually put it all the way in. So you could just use one of these and kind of put it in the most you can. Then you can grab a nut and a small C-clamp. Put it over one of the pins. Make sure your nut's big enough for the pin. And then you start tightening. You get to the top first and then the bottom. Okay. Went ahead and grabbed a slightly larger nut, and you can measure it with the pin that you took off in the beginning. So, you know, it's starting to get dark again. The new chain that we got is a Rivet style installation, so it does not use a master link, and we have a Rivet chain tool here. Okay, we got our riveting tool here. We got that on there. We're just gonna crimp where these two holes are, and just press them in. So that's how the riveting, this riveting style works. See the difference? Now the same thing on the other side. Okay, now just to make sure, we can get a digital caliper and check these here. See how wide they are? This one, this one's 5.61. This one is 5.65, 5.42, 5.43, and ours are 5.61 and 5.73, so we're good. Okay, now we're gonna check the tension on our chain, and we just put tension on it. The bike says 30 to 40 millimeter or 1.2 to 1.6 inches. So the way we're gonna do that is get our measuring tape and put it in between the sprockets on the bottom part of the chain, and we can leave it here. That's about 2.5 inches on the bottom. And if it reaches all the way up to 1, the bottom of the chain reaches all the way to 1, that would be 1.5. So does not quite reach 1 inch, almost. So that's probably 1.5. That's probably like 1.4, if anything. So that's pretty damn good. That's right in between 1.2 and 1.6. Okay, lastly, put your brake caliper on the rear back on, those two bolts. On the rear axle, put your washer and your nut back on. And once it's tightened, don't forget your cotter pin. Okay, rear axle torque specs are about maybe 6 or 7 ugga-duggas, or maybe 95 foot-pounds until you get this hole aligned with the castle nut. And then yeah. The front sprocket is going to be 92 foot-pounds, and make sure someone is holding the rear brake or the wheels will turn on you. When you finish tightening the rear axle nut, make sure your tension is the same and make fine adjustments, and redo everything if you need to, because it might change. Alright, now that we just finished washing it, we can put the sprocket cover on. You would not believe how bad this was. It was gross, and so was the sprocket cover, especially from the inside. Unbelievably nasty. But now that we cleaned it, let's put it on and we should be done. Here's our sprocket cover. I even cleaned it from the inside, even took this plate off. This has a sensor on here. Cleaned that as well. Now we can put it on. Okay, here is our sprocket cover. The top uses 2 long ones and the bottom uses 2 short ones, and there are 8mm hex heads, and so is the sensor. All done. Now for a test ride. Before we do that, we're going to let the motorcycle dry since we wet it, and since I wiped off all the grease off of this chain, we're gonna put some chain wax on it, let it sit for a while, and then test drive it. It's already warmed up. It's a lot different than my Ducati. the chain real quick. It's exactly where we left it. I mean, it's a new chain, so I mean, it will stretch out like the slightest bit. This is still very good. This is how we left it. Yeah, she's ready to go now. Let's take it back to the shop. So the owner is going to pick up the motorcycle the following day. I come out of work pretty late, so I can only do this kind of at night. So in the morning we did take another quick test ride just to make sure everything is all good, and yeah, everything was good to go, and turned it in. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.